Let's start with the winter fuel payments for pensioners. Last week the UK government U-turned and pledged to reinstate them for pensioners with an income under £35,000. The Scottish Government was already giving pensioners at least £100, but today the First Minister stepped up his offer.
Now that they've seen the error of their ways, my government will once again do the right thing by Scotland's pensioners. I'm very happy to confirm today that no pensioner in Scotland will receive less than they would under the new UK scheme. Details will be set out in due course by my government, but the Scottish Government will always seek to do what is best for Scotland's pensioners.
Rachel Watson, how do you think both governments, UK and Scottish governments, have played this?
Well, I think, Labour got into government nearly a year ago now. Did they want their first year in power to be almost taken over by the winter fuel payments, or be that kind of significant event in the first few months that they took power in the UK? No, they absolutely did not. I think it's been a complete nightmare for them. I think they handled it poorly in terms of assessing that risk when they first decided to make changes to winter fuel payment, but also the way that they communicated that and then allowed this to become a political football for the past almost a year now. And the UK, the Scottish Government also saw this as a kind of opportunity where they could go in. We're in an election year in Scotland with the Holyrood elections next year. So it's been one of those things that actually became quite an easy hit for the SNP to take from a Labour government, and those significant blows that have been done to the Scottish Labour Party as part of that.
Andy Maciver, this move by the First Minister today was probably the most expected ever. Just no surprise there at all, because we knew that they were going to do this, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really do anything else. I mean, the whole point of what the SNP were trying to do was take advantage of Labour's cut to winter fuel payments, so you can't then be on the side where you're actually ending up giving Scottish pensioners less. I don't think actually. The reality is the SNP are not particularly the story here. There's been a few Labour quotes this afternoon that have made me chuckle a little bit, as it sort of turned into saying that the SNP have finally backed Labour's policy.
That was what they were trying to push last week when they made the U-turn, wasn't it?
Yeah, the reality of this is that the political reality is the headline of this entire issue over the last year has been about Labour and cuts to winter fuel payments. And the vast majority of people, voters, will not get beyond that. There's a lot of detail that sits beneath that, but the headline will always be about what Labour did a year or so ago on this, and I don't think that was ever going to change. This is a net problem for Labour and not a net problem for the SNP.
And Hannah, this is the First Minister today basically saying he's going to use the extra 120 or so of consequentials from the spending announcement from the Chancellor last week, basically to put it into to even up.
Yeah, and that's the right thing to do. And I mean, nobody talks about the cost of a U-turn. So not only have Labour made a complete fool of themselves, caused a huge amount of distress and trauma to pensioners, and I know people will say, it was a cynical move by the SNP, or it was about political advantage, or a political football. Actually, I think it was just a government trying to do the right thing with the limited resources it had. And now the Scottish Government have done the right thing, the SNP and government have done the right thing. But I mean, I agree with both Andy and Rachel, is that it is remarkable that Labour are trying to spin it to say that we've caught up with them, when the SNP were the ones who were trying to protect pensioners at a time when the whole allowance was being cut. And once again, the SNP did it with the bedroom tax, they've done it with things like the Scottish Child Payment, trying to protect the poorest in society when a huge amount of damage is being done by cuts coming from Westminster. I think we all recognise that budgets are tight and that a huge mess was made by previous Conservatives, but I think Labour need to be a bit more clever about the way they communicate and the way they message some of this
briefly,
stuff.
Andy, because Labour were kind of outflanked on the left by the SNP and on the right by Reform and the Conservatives on this.
But, I mean, I think this is bad comms, not bad policy. I mean, the welfare bill is this country's biggest single issue for the next several decades to come. Now, it has to be tackled, so there wasn't anything in particular wrong with the policy. The decision to major on that from a comms point of view on this particular policy was completely bizarre, but the policy itself I don't think there's a huge problem with.